here's something I've been thinking about a lot. Freelancers plateau. And I don't think it's because they suck. I don't think it's because they're too busy. I just think it's because they lack a priority or understanding of what they're building. And so there's kind of two pathways that you can get into. And every business owner makes this choice and every freelancer makes this choice. So I want to start with a very simple kind of distinction between the two. So a freelancer is someone who does the work and a business owner is someone who pays someone to do the work. It's really that simple. Freelancers tend to start with a passion in mind. So I'll take creatives as a great example because creatives are fantastic at doing this, where they go out there and they do something and they kind of like it. And then they're like, oh, wow, this is really fun. I like this. I want to, can I do more of this? And then, oh, this is going to need this. And it's usually that need this part that's going to start the concept of, well, shit, I can't do this for free. So I need to do it. So I might as well get paid to do it so I can do the thing. And then that adds more gear and adds more stuff. And if you're lucky, you get into a easy enough niche that you don't need a bunch of gear. If you're unlucky, you end up as a videographer, as an example, where you have, thousands of dollars of cameras, lenses, all of the little shit that goes with it is expensive. And so you need to make a way to actually pay for this. And so you end up saying, hey, I'll sell you videos. And that's kind of how a freelancer starts, is they start that way. And then they start growing. And then someone goes, hey, I really like what you do. And then someone else and someone else. And you've suddenly got all these people saying, hey, I really like what you do. Now, often this is because you start off really, really cheap and you really don't know how much you should be charging. And so you end up swamped. So then the natural thing is you have two options here. Is you can go out and bring in a friend to help you, or you raise your rates in hoping that people drop off, but then the ones that stay are paying more. And this is kind of what happened to me in my photography career, is I got to the point where I was busy, but I wasn't busy enough. And so I made like a really ballsy move at the time. I said, well, what's the most someone's charging locally? And then I tripled it. And that back then was unheard of. No one was charging more than $500 a day. And I walked out saying I charge $1,500 a day. And I didn't actually even say, like, here's why I do this. It just went out there and did it. And that worked for a certain amount of time. But then I got so busy again that I was swamped again. And so I hired someone else. And so in came Phil, and he was my assistant. So when you start building something, you need to add on parts, whether it be gear, whether it be people. And often you get to a point where it's not sustainable anymore. So you've got either too much gear, too many people, and you're unable to go any further, because you're not looking at it in a broad scheme of things. As business owners, what we do is we align ourselves with a solution. So we create X for X client. And that solution dictates how we solve the problem. So for example, if clients need to tell their message in a clear and concise manner, it might be video, or it might be a website, or it might be XYZ, right? We know the solution, but then we don't scale that solution. We scale the operations around it. And so we end up always stuck in the operations. The trick, if you're a freelancer, is just to raise your rates to a point where you're a premium and hold it there and then cap. That's a hard one because no one likes to turn down business. But if you're busy enough that you can raise your rates to an acceptable ceiling for you, like let's say you're a graphic designer and you make logos, and your logos, you started at $500 and now you're up to $5,000 a logo, right? So you push yourself to 10, you get to 10. You hold there and you just start to say to your clients, I'm being really picky. I'm sorry, you're not the right client for me. Or I'm putting you on a backlist. You're going to be looking at 2 months. 3 months, is that okay with you, right? So if not, here are some people that I can, align you with that you can get your logo done. That plateau happens because more often than not, we don't want to scale beyond that. So as a freelancer, you can't really scale beyond that unless you build in systems around it that help it and kind of remove all the things that you don't like doing. So that could be the client booking, that could be the accounting, that could be the project management, that could be, the editing, right? So like as videographers know that this part is fun making the video, the editing it sucks. So that you can outsource. Outsourcing is a way of growing your business and getting past that plateau. As a business owner, this is different. And this is the one thing that I've learned recently, and it It's changed the way I thought about freelancing a lot, because freelancing has its natural limits. You're only one person, you can only do so much. And so what I want to do is really impress upon you is ask yourself, are you actually doing the work because you love doing the work? And if that's the case, then so be it. That's good. But don't want for more if you're unwilling to do the work that gets you more. So if you're sitting there and you're doing something, it could be any kind of artistic endeavor or creative endeavor, and you want to make it bigger, you want to scale it, you're going to have to make some hard choices. And that might mean saying goodbye to editing. That might mean saying goodbye to, the budgeting and billing and pre-production and all that stuff. Do the thing that you really want to do and then sub out anything around it and be done. Now, if you're running a business, this is where it can differ. I have had to give up, and so many times, the ability to do the work. So I no longer sit behind the camera when I'm directing a commercial, because if I'm behind the camera, I can't deal with the client. As the director, I can deal with the client. And that's where the big distinction comes in, is you have to start asking yourself, what part am I really passionate about? If you can find that one part you're really passionate about, the rest comes easy, by the way. It's a super easy process at that point. Take a moment and look at your business and look at your freelancing business and ask yourself, what parts of it am I doing the most? And do I need to be doing those parts? And if it's a no, then how do I bring in the right people to be able to handle that? And how do I then scale beyond that? That's going to get you past the plateau that naturally occurs in freelancing. If you're a business owner, it's going to be a little different, as you're going to look and say, which parts of my business can I scale that make the most money? It might be a case of, okay, this part of my business is doing really, really well, but we're underserving that market. We can saturate it even more by doing XYZ and bringing in 2 or 3 more people. That's exciting. And that's where you can actually scale your business. But as a freelancer, notice what you're doing. Change what you're doing is important, because if you're doing the same thing over and over again, you're not going to see the same results. I do believe in persistence and repetition and consistency, but if that consistency is driving the wrong levers, you're never going to see the growth.